Hello, my name is Bryant Hawthorne. I am a product manager on the creator team, focusing on creator tools and editor. Today, we're going to just have a casual just chat. We're going to make some s'mores, probably tell some camp. No? Oh, we're talking about editor today. That's actually probably why you're here, because it says editor right on the time slot. So let's dig in. So today, we're going to talk about, hey, what is editor? What can editor do? I'm going to do a little demo to hopefully prove that point of what it can do and talk a little bit about the future of editor. So first of all, hey, what is editor? Editor is an in-engine multi-block editing experience built on an extensible framework. We can really think of it as what you see is what you get. Those are the scenarios that we are primarily focusing on. So that was a lot of words, probably confusing. Let's dig into that a little bit more. So it's part of Bedrock. It is a different mode that actually ships with the client. You can access it through a desktop shortcut or directly through the launcher. So in December, we actually released to retail, added a Creator Tools tab inside of Launcher within Bedrock that you can launch Editor directly. It contains lots of tools for large block operations. So unlike Creative Mode within Bedrock, which is a block-by-block creative mode, this allows tools where you can have brushes and selections where you can do large block operations. In addition, we've made it so creators can build their own tools inside of Editor directly. So if you have a specific workflow or a tool that, hey, Editor doesn't support it today, we've actually made it so you can build tools directly inside of Editor. And we want to make this more than just a terrain building tool. And so you can see the image here. This is vibrant visuals. And so a lot of JSON editing, you don't really know what you're getting until you jump in the game. Editor allows you to manipulate a lot of these things like vibrant visuals, that it's updating JSON in real time and actually showing you what that looks like. And so let's dig into that a little bit more, starting out, what can Editor do? So we're going to go into a scenario for vibrant visuals. So in this case, this is a build that we're showing that is still experimental. Vibrant Visuals is now in preview, so you won't have to go through this step. But we're turning Vibrant Visuals on. Then we're jumping directly into Editor here. So let's say you want to build like a Mars map where the sky is kind of red, it's a little eerie, makes you feel like you're in space. You can do that. You go to View, Deferred Lighting, Settings. In this case, we're going to go to color grading and start adjusting the color grading of the sky. So we're going to make it a little bit more red. It feels a little bit more like Mars here. In the builds today, you can actually directly export the JSON. We're doing a lot of investment into MC Tools integration that Mike has talked about. In this case, we have added the integration where with one click, you can generate a resource pack, which is super cool. It takes a lot of the complex nature out of that. With another click, you can actually turn this into an MC project, MC Tools project. From here, you can actually directly export a world. So in this case, we're going to say, hey, we want to turn this into a flat world. It's going to generate that as a world inside of Minecraft with those resource packs already generated. And so we're going to just launch directly into that. And just like that, you can see your Mars map. And so trying to take a lot of the complexity out of that whole workflow to make it easier. And this is exactly what we mean when we say what you see is what you get. Another example that I wanted to show is our integration with Realm. So this is another thing we recently invested in. We're seeing a lot of people downloading worlds and then directly putting those in their Realm and testing them in different platforms. So in this case, I'm an editor. I'm just taking a basic brush and just kind of proving that, hey, this is working in real time here. So we brushed on the ground. I'm dropping a few pigs here. And then on that right-hand side, this is our Publish to Realms pane. So you can see the editor's awesome realm that I'm publishing this directly to. I'm now going into just regular Bedrock mode and hitting play here. I'm launching my realm directly. And after this loads, you'll see that, hey, this is what I just edited. So just in a matter of seconds, you can actually have big swooping changes into your world, and then you can publish that. So this is really good for cross-platform testing if you want to see what a world feels like on your phone, on Xbox, or even if you're like, hey, I want to build a big mountain, put some skeletons on it, and battle these skeletons with my friends. Hey, you can do that in seconds now, which is pretty powerful. So what else can editor do? I'm not going to go through these in detail, but as we talked about, kind of broad strokes, brushes, rich terrain tools. We're going to get into a little bit in the demo of kind of structure management. We talked about vibrant visuals. And then the coolest part with editor is you can actually test your worlds. You can export that. And like we showed with the realms, you can put that directly in your realm. So you can do something with this and hopefully take some of the technical complexity out of that. So we're showing the Arc Day Triumph here. This shows up a couple of places. Editor just does a really good job building structures like that. And so we're going to go through a demo today, and I'm going to show you a simple way to build something like the Arc Day Triumph. So let's dig in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I usually fly around and try to find the area that I want. Because I'm going to be building more of a structure, it doesn't really matter what my terrain is here, but something that's relatively flat. So this looks like a decent place to start. So what I'm going to do first is go to selection in my marquee selection here. And I am going to actually grab the adjacent block target. I'm going to come here and expand and what I'm going to be doing is just kind of clearing out this terrain just to give myself a little bit more of like a canvas to start building with. So from here, I'm going to be using a combination of just kind of the UI as well as keyboard. When I do use keyboard, I'm going to hopefully tell you what I'm doing just so you can follow along with this. So in this case, I hit delete, trying to delete some of that terrain. The next thing I'm going to do is, hey, that looks a little funny with just kind of blocked out. Doesn't really matter for my build, but I'm going to just brush over that in general to make it look a little bit more smooth, just so it doesn't look like I literally carved out a cube in the earth. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to select just a grass block, and then I'm going to mask this. I'm going to change my shape. Right now it's ellipsoid. I'm going to increase the radius just to make things a little bit faster. And then I'm just literally going to paint this into the earth here. So that looks like a pretty good place to just start building. Another thing that I'm paying attention to is my coordinates on the top right. You can see my coordinates, and that just kind of helps me understand like, hey, where am I starting building? Looking at the positive and negative X and Z axes here. So next thing I want to do, Arc Day Triumph is largely a big cube. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to make the X and Z, let's start with 23 here. 23 seems like a decent place. The Arc Day Triumph is actually a little bit taller than it is wide. So I am going to make that 30, and I am going to, let's change this a little bit so it's a little bit more centered here. Cool. Next thing I want to do is I want to fill this. I don't like any of the blocks for the Arc Day Triumph on my current hotbar. So I'm going to come in here and I am going to switch to quartz. Quartz is a pretty good, just whitish block that will look good for the Arc Day Triumph. So I'm going to use the fill here. I can also use Control F. I'll be doing that mostly throughout the rest of this. And then the Arc Day Triumph, it has that little top kind of thing at the top there. I am going to come here. I'm going to hit Control. I misclicked, so let's try that again. Come over here. I can hit Control click, and then I can expand this by one block on each side. So that's going to give it that nice little topper thing. So let's do that. Try not to misclick. The cool thing with this is if I do misclick like that, I can actually undo my selection. So that's something that we recently added, which was game changing. So you weren't constantly being like, oh man, I misclicked. Okay, next thing is on top of the little topper are the little blocks that make it look more like a castle. I can easily repeat these with the repeater tool. I'm going to go to grid repeat. I know that this is 23 long, so let's repeat it 12 times. I actually don't need the X here, so let me get rid of the X first. Or sorry, the Y. I can repeat that 12 times, and then I want a space in between each of those, so let's change the X and Z. Oh, I don't want space at 12, I want space at 2. Let's do that. Boom. So you can see this is a really powerful tool to just any type of patterns. I can easily just repeat them directly in here. I don't want these middle ones, so what I'm going to do is select all of those in between. I'm hitting the delete button, and now it looks just like a castle, which is pretty cool. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some guides. Guides really help on structures like this. Just know, hey, where's the center block? I can use really any block for this. A lot of people use wool. I'm just going to use blue ice because it's already here. First thing I'm going to do, again, I know this is 23, so if I have, I'm looking at the z-axis here, 12 will actually put me directly into the center there, that 12th block. So I can move this over and I can fill this with blue ice, and this is just going to give me a guide where, hey, that last block there is going to be the center block. I want half of kind of what I had before, so I'm just going to say 15 on the y-axis here, and I'm going to fill this in. Right now I'm looking in the positive x direction. I mentioned that I like doing that to kind of orient myself, just because I know, hey, if I am modifying the size or origin in here, I know what direction I'm going. So I'm going to take these guides and I want to duplicate these on the other side that I'm going to be doing a lot of my building. So let me add this, make sure I select all those. Now I'm just copying it. So I just did a Control C, which feels very familiar. And then I'm going to go to this side and paste preview. So you can see it's going to be oriented to where I copied it. I simply come over here with 90 degrees and I can just stamp that on if I actually align it correctly. Boom, there we go. So it is stamped on. So I'm going to use those in just a second. The reason I'm doing that now is I'm going to add a little bit more detail, and then I want to use those guides to actually carve through this to add the legs. So the next thing I'm going to do is add some stairs just to give a little bit more polish to this. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over to my block picker, and I'm going to add some quartz stairs. So I can do that here. And then I'm going to add these to the top. So I want to switch my target back to adjacent mode here. And then I am going to just pull this so it is matching that overhang area. So boom, did that. And then I'm just going to fill that. So you'll see it looks a little weird because the stairs are kind of in what you would typically orient the normal stairs for. There we go. The cool part is we actually recently shipped a feature called Workbench that allows you to hover over a block that has modifiable properties. And if you're hovering over those, you can see how that left pane is changing. So I can simply hit Shift Control left click, and now I'll go to the side so you can see that better. And it oriented that exactly how I wanted, which is pretty cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this whole set of stairs here, go to paste preview. We're still at 90 here. And then I am going to add these a little bit lower. So when we add those or carve through the stairs, we'll just carve through or carve to make the legs of the Arc de Triomphe. We're going to carve through the stairs directly. I'm actually going to add one at the bottom, but this one I actually want to go back to Workbench. I'm going to come and select these. I'm going to go back to block target. I'm going to select these, and then I am going to modify the properties again. So again, kind of same thing I did before, Control Shift click, and now that's exactly how I want them. Now to make this so it is going around the entire thing, I can simply do what I did with the stairs, where I can copy that. I can go back to paste preview, switch it to 90 degrees, and then stamp that on. So for the sake of time, I'm only going to be focusing on these two faces right here. You can kind of imagine how I would be doing this all the way around the Arc de Triomphe, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to focus on these two faces here. Next thing I'm going to do is carve this. And so what I'll do, there's a couple different ways I can go about this. One is I can use selection and brushes and just carve it directly through. If you're familiar with CAD software or other software like that, you kind of think of these primitives of, hey, I have a cube, I'm going to carve through with these other primitives, and you can get these very complex shapes doing that. So the next thing I'm going to do is take the brush. I'm going to do this with a cylinder. I'm going to carve the cylinder through here. And I am going to basically change the extrude direction to the x-axis. So it'll flip directly here. And then I'm going to make this uniform, but increase the height as long as I can. So I simply just need to click here, hit delete, and it's going to go partially through there. I can click this again, but another tool I want to show you is our extrude tool. So let me get rid of this selection so you can see what I am doing here. So with extrude tool, we have add and remove. In this case, I want to decrease the blocks here. I'm just going to increase the layer count. And so with one click, I can come in here and select that, and it will extrude all the way through this, which is pretty cool. Next is I want to start making those legs, and so I can come in here and make another selection. I'm going to go all the way down here, and because we added those stairs, I actually have to go towards myself one block, and I'll extrude all the way through here, delete that out, boom. So starting to look like the Arc de Triomphe, which is pretty cool. I'm going to repeat the same things I did right there on this side. So I'm going to go back to my brush. This time I want to have my extrude direction in the the Z axis. So again, this is where that compass is really helpful. I'm going to delete this. This gets a little bit more tricky because we already have the extrude that we did before. We can fix that by simply adding a offset. So in this case, I'm just going to do an offset of -5 and click right there and delete that. And then I can go back to my extrude tool. The settings are already going to persist, and I just click. Now, one more selection to cut through to add the remainder of the legs. So I'm going to come in here and make this selection volume just like I did before. Come in here, make this go all the way through, delete that, and boom! So it looks pretty cool like that. So I'm just going to add a little bit more details on this just to kind of show different ways we can make this look nice and pretty. So I'm going to get rid of the selection volume just so that's not cluttering that up. We're going to make sure we're on an adjacent target here. I'm going to select this entire thing, go back to my quartz block. Let's fill that out with Control F. And now let's go to the block target, and what I'm going to do here is just delete this, adding those nice little frames that you see in the Arc de Triomphe. I'm going to add this a similar thing right below it too to add a little bit more detail. So again, fill, and I'm going to change my target to my block target and select these, delete. Now I want this on the other side. I can copy what I just did, or I can rebuild it. In this case, I'm just going to use paste preview again. I don't want any rotation there. I can stamp that in. So looking pretty good. The last thing I'm going to do for detail here is actually, let's take this and put it on the other side. I did say I was going to make two sides of this look pretty. So let me show you how you can actually modify this on both sides. So I'm going to rotate this 90, quickly come in here, stamp that. Now the last thing I'm going to do is just add a little bit more detail. So I'm going to come into my brush. I am going to add just the single block brush. This is a really powerful brush where instead of going to crosshair mode, you can just paint with a single brush. You can see I have that offset still. So we persist those. So in this case, I'm just going to come back. I want the adjacent block, and I can come in and just decorate this. If I had a little bit more time, I would have a little bit more persistent. Nice view. The last thing I want to show you, which is pretty cool, we already showed a repeat tool. I am going to select this and show you what you can do with mass structures like this, where I can come in, go into my repeat tool, and basically make very, very cool complex structures with things like this. So there you have it. That is Editor in a nutshell. The last thing I wanted to talk about very quick before we go to Q&A is, hey, what's the future of Editor? A lot of cool things we can do. The one that we are about to start working on is prefabs. You can think of these as complex structures. We've talked to a lot of creators about, hey, making structures really hard. We usually do an asset world, thousands of structures. We want prefabs to be similar to how users and creators work in tools like Unity or Unreal Engine, where you can take structures, you can have local instances, global instances, you modify something. So like in the Arc de Triomphe, if I modified one of those, you could see that change propagate throughout. So a whole bunch of other things that we're thinking about investing in here. Definitely reach out to us in Discord if you have strong opinions or you see something on there that grabs your attention and you are very excited. So cool, let's move on to Q&A here. So question from Q. Hello, do you plan to update Jigsaw generation to have the structures around it? So in terms of editor and Jigsaws, like we mentioned, we're investing in things like prefabs and structures as a whole. We think Jigsaws are a really interesting thing to integrate into editor. Again, the what you see is what you get. If we could actually see the Jigsaw structures directly in editor and see how changes propagate into editor, there's some really powerful things there. So we're definitely thinking about Jigsaws and kind of, hey, what we can do there and alongside of generation in general. Neverrun Sandbox, any chance there is an OBJ exporter option in editor? So we've talked about this a lot. Some of us on the team have backgrounds in CAD, and we've talked about, oh man, it would be really cool to have OBJ or STL, and then being able to do things like that, both import as well as export. And so it's definitely something on our roadmap of thinking about. Let's grab one more here is Team Red Studio. Can editor support pen and touch import? Right now, editor is just on keyboard and mouse. It's something that we've gotten a lot of requests on, hey, can we get this in mobile? Maybe in the future. Right now, we just want to make sure that we're providing value to creators on the mouse and keyboard. And then maybe in the future someday that touch or even iPad with stylist support would be something interesting, but stay tuned for the future there. So we're running a little bit low on time. So thank you all for listening to me ramble about editor. I love what we're doing. If you have strong thoughts of, hey, the direction we should go, like I said, reach out to Discord, and thank you very much.